Welcome to Thriving with ADHD, a podcast where we'll share everyday practical tips to thrive in life as an adult with ADHD. This podcast is brought to you by Animo Sano Psychiatry, a behavioral health practice with a specialist ADHD clinic based in North Carolina. And this is your host, Nada Pupovac. Welcome to Thriving with ADHD, dear ADHD community. We have a fantastic speaker today, one of Animo Sano's amazing physician assistants, MacKenzie Kirchner, and she will be sharing her knowledge on a topic that she is very passionate about, and that's dopamine detox. Before we jump into our conversation with MacKenzie, here is a bit more about her. With a lifelong commitment to behavioral health, MacKenzie is a professional and empathetic PAC with experience in medical management, telemedicine, CBT, and lifestyle changes. Her education includes a Master's of Medical Science from Mercer University with a focus on physician assistant studies, including addiction management and special lectures on LGBTQ safe medicine. As a former patient advocate and MA at a non-profit clinic, she understands the importance of serving underserved populations. Welcome to our podcast, MacKenzie. I'm so excited to have you. I've heard so many great things about you as our practitioner, both from our patients and our team. So I really couldn't wait to finally have you on our show.
Oh, that's so nice. Yeah, I'm excited to be here.
Absolutely.
Thanks so much.
I was really looking forward to this chat. So we talked about having you on the show for a few months now, and finally you're here. So and you have this fantastic topic, I think, to our patients, but also for me personally as a parent, and even to myself. I would really like to learn about dopamine detox and I suppose what it is exactly. Let's talk about how did the concept come about, and then we'll go into other details.
Let's do it. Yeah. So a dopamine detox, I mean, it's a very loose term. You could assign any definition to it, but essentially what it is it's a break from HDAs. HDAs are high dopamine activities, and those addicting vices that we get in. Some of the more obvious ones would be like drugs and alcohol. But the ones that I really focused on through dopamine detox is, the technology, like the phones in our pockets and those things that we're getting addicted to that have just kind of sprung up on us in the last 10 years. And, anything that sends a rush of dopamine to the brain, it can be included in a dopamine detox. Like gaming, fast-paced gaming is included. There are actually centers you can go to detox from internet addiction, phone addiction, and gaming, but those are not accessible to everyone. So dopamine detox is something that you can use at home to address this. As people just started to feel more addicted to their technology, we've been looking for ways recently to disengage and reset our dopamine pathways. A detox is simply a cold turkey break from these vices that keep getting us hooked. It can be a break anywhere from 3 days to 3 months. I usually do a 2-week detox to reset myself. I recommend 2 weeks at least for my patients, but the definition is pretty loose. Basically, it's a break from your addictions to phone, technology, or whatever else it may be.
Could you explain how dopamine affects our brain and behavior?
Yeah. So dopamine is one of our neurotransmitters. It's normally kind of dubbed the reward neurotransmitter. There's 4 distinct dopamine pathways in the brain, 3 of which control behavior. The other one's involved in breast milk letdown, so that one doesn't get counted in this. But, these pathways are the mesocortical pathway, nigrostriatal, mesolimbic, all fancy words, but basically these pathways are going to use dopamine to change behavior. So they can be involved in cognition, memory, attention, movement and sensory stimuli, pleasure, reward seeking, and then, of course, addiction. So, as these pathways become stronger and weaker in certain areas based on our addictions and behavior and the way our brain is using dopamine, it creates addictions and cravings, which is how dopamine can be involved in this issue for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And how can an overload of dopamine affect our daily life and our mental health?
Right, because dopamine's not a bad thing. We want to utilize it. We want to be able
Uh-huh.
to feel, pleasure and reward, and
Yep. Yep.
that it's good. Too little of it's very bad. But what the issue is when we're engaging in high dopamine activities and we're getting a
Mm.
bolus of dopamine, that becomes very addictive. One of the best examples I can give is a slot machine. You
Mm-hmm.
pull it, you don't win anything, but it all happens so fast, and the promise of a reward and a bigger reward
Mm.
is right there with another pull. So we keep going, right?
Mm.
So when we get addicted to high dopamine activities and we can't keep up with the craving for more and more and more, we're
Mm-hmm.
going to get symptoms that include anxiety, poor concentration, increased stress, insomnia, depression, aggression, which sometimes I think I've seen in men who play these intense video games and then they get really upset. Some of that's
Mm.
due to the dopamine, yeah. And then what I was really surprised to find when I was researching some of this is it can even play a role in hallucinations and mania, in some of maybe our
Mm.
bipolar patients or patients who struggle with psychosis, which I thought was so interesting. It can, when we get dysregulated, all those things can be happening.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yep.
Um, and what sort of activities or habits lead to an increase in dopamine that may require a detox?
Yeah, yeah. So aside from drugs and alcohol, which are kind of the more obvious addictions,
Mm-hmm.
um, again we can think about it that anything that gets your brain hooked on a quick, fast pace reward.
Mm-hmm.
So technology is a sneaky one. In the early '90s, we'd sit down at the family computer and have to wait for dial up to load up whatever we wanted to look at, and
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't a big flashy continuous advertisement. So as technology got faster and more accessible, companies have spent trillions of dollars working to make internet algorithms more catching.
Mm-hmm.
They have designed them to get us hooked and dysregulate our dopamine. So it's way more of an issue now, way more of an issue.
Mm-hmm.
So, what I think of right away in my patients is those things like phones,
Mm.
Candy Crush, like those really fast games that are quick rewards and there's bright lights and fast sounds, just like a casino, right?
Mm.
You can also think of again, the video games when you sit down at a console, depending on the game you're playing, that can also be included. The average person spends 4 hours on their phone a day, and
Mm.
I think most people would say they spend more. And your
Mm.
phone gets up to 2,600 touches a day, which is crazy to think about. So that's how hooked your brain can get on instant entertainment. We're constantly searching for the next hit, the next thing we're going to scroll to. It becomes increasingly hard to get reward, so that we can't get reward from slow paced activities we used to enjoy. Reading is a big one my patients always complain about. I used to love reading and I can't read anymore. And
Mm-hmm.
it's not always ADHD. Sometimes it's this dopamine detox and or dopamine dysregulation.
Mm.
So
Mm.
it becomes really hard to concentrate on things and enjoy things that take more concentration because it's no longer a reward.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And what are some practical strategies for managing dopamine levels day to day?
Yeah, so
Yeah.
detoxing is just setting limits with those high dopamine activities.
Mm-hmm.
You can do the detox to reset, but if you don't have a strategy for how to return,
Mm.
you're going to go right back to the same behavior. So I normally recommend people, getting away from the video games or deleting the apps on their phone, hiding it if you need to, blocking them through apps like Opal. They will
Mm-hmm.
block them. You can give the password to a friend if it's that hard to do. You take a nice long break, but you've got to integrate low dopamine activity slowly back into your life.
Uh-huh.
So reading, exercise, walking, meditative practices, anything that's going to really grab your concentration and require mindfulness is great. And then you've got to have a strategy for when you want to put those apps back on your phone. You may not, but most people want to return to being able to check them, with some self-control, or go back to video games with some self-control, whatever that technology may be. Yeah. And I would recommend not even putting them back until you decide, okay, what's my limit? Half an hour a day on this one, half an hour total a day. Maybe you never put them back on your phone. Maybe you tell yourself, I'm only going to go to these websites when I'm at a desktop computer. That even puts a limitation on it, because you don't have your laptop all the time usually. So maybe for some people, getting it out of your pocket's a good idea. But again, one of the most important things to do is replace the high dopamine activities with low dopamine activities, and keeping them on a schedule so that you stay in a healthy place with dopamine.
If there is one most important thing our listeners should remember from this episode, what that would be?
Yeah, so tech is evolving at the speed of light. I mean, I just think back to when we didn't even have a cell phone in the house, and how fast everything has changed, and how all this technology would have just blown my mind when I was a kid. And we have not evolved that fast. We can't. It takes us thousands of years as a species to evolve, and our brains have not caught up to this. Maybe future generations will be able to adapt better, but we have not adapted, which is why we're getting sick. We are getting mentally ill from being hooked on some of these technologies, and requiring things like dopamine detoxes is definitely going to be a thing of the future that I think we're going to be integrating much more in our society. But we need more time to adjust. Just because something seems new and shiny and instantaneous does not mean that it's good for us. Social media, gaming, time-wasting apps are like fast food for our brains. Quicker is not always better. Something like a dopamine detox could help you reset, find your own limits, and then you can take back control.
Thank you so much. Yeah. This was very, very useful conversation that we had. Definitely something to think about, to incorporate into our even daily habits, I'd say. So yeah, thank you. It was a pleasure having you on the podcast, and I hope to have you in the future to maybe talk some more about dopamine detox, but anything else, of course, for sure.
Yeah, that would be great. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for listening to Thriving with ADHD. This show is produced by Animo Sano Psychiatry. Please follow, rate, or share our podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or any other streaming app of your choice. Music is by Daddy's Music from Pixabay. For more information about Animo Sano Psychiatry, please visit animosanopsychiatry.com.